It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And this week, we're breaking down that Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, which was a week ago from the Super Bowl, which Mike and I admit myself have forgot happened, was a week ago. So
yeah, I think that's just a good sign, though, and I'll explain in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. The Fantastic Forecast is finally revealed. We can talk about the worst kept secret in Hollywood and some concept art. We're going to review Madam Web at the end of the episode because I know all of you ran out and saw it. That's why we waited to do it today and include this because everyone's seen it. Everyone has seen Madam Web, obviously. So we can review here at the end of the episode and more.
Yes, this is like I'm just kind of pulling this together right now. This very well could be one of the more exciting episodes that we record all year. There is so much going on in this episode. So this is one of the unintended benefits of not doing a Super Bowl post recording where we like run down the trailers and the commercials. We get to bring the best of what happened last week and all the other like boring chaff falls to the side. So we're going to talk about that awesome stuff. There's exciting announcements that came out this week. We get to review, I would say, a pretty infamous movie at this point in time. Mm-hmm. So there's like a ton of great stuff that we're going to talk about. But also, I think most importantly, this is like maybe a Superhero Slate first. This is the only time we've ever done this. And the only time Chris has ever done this to me.
Oh,
and
my
this
God.
is just hyping everybody up for the end of the episode. So you have to listen all the way through because I'm sure you've dropped your phone plenty of times. And like the bottom of the screen is cracked and you can't quite get to the skip or scrub bar. So you're going to have to listen to the whole episode to get to the end, the Madam Web review. Because you might be asking, hey, I've been a loyal subscriber to you guys for 8+ years. Actually, I think we're going on like 9 years.
We are into our 9th, coming up on our 10th. Yes.
Yeah. Like, where is the dedicated standalone review episode for the Marvel movie? That's what I'm used to. That's what I'm accustomed to. And I was like, well, that's what I was expecting too today. I was like, okay, I'm preparing myself for 2 recording sessions until Chris kind of breaks our unwritten rule that we've had for nearly a decade now.
Yeah. Where
if we both plan on seeing a movie, we don't talk about it until we get on the microphone. We kind of, we keep it close to our chest until we can kind of get it on the official recorded record until like Friday rolls around and Chris tells me, are you sure you want to go to the theaters for this movie?
Yeah, so let's not say anything yet. I mean, we'll get to it later because there's a whole story here. But I will tell you, me and Mike, there's a 3-hour time difference between me and Mike. And I have a good window of when I can message him and get a response. So I had to sit for an extra 3+ hours mulling over, do I talk to Mike about this movie before he goes and sees it, or before we do a review, or not? And that is probably one of the longest sections of time in my entire life, just considering the repercussions of that. So essentially, Chris recommended some maybe more cloak and dagger ways to watch this film and to maybe not subject myself to the car travel, the gasoline expense, the mental expense of having to be in a theater. Mike has to worry about a college savings for his upcoming child. So I'm like,
that's true.
I'm actually
Every
not doing it for
is
you.
Precious.
I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for your kid's education, Mike.
Oh my God! And the calculus is going to be crazy once this kid is here later in the year. Like, I will be infuriatingly angry if I waste a theater trip on a movie that I don't like. He's
already concerned about the thermostat settings with 3 people in the household. What's that going to cost? Going to do to him? I know, Mike.
Yes,
I know he's thinking that. He's worried about the physics of how people are sticking to walls. I don't even know. We don't.
Well, Chris, I mean, how do you know if you can stick to a wall if you've never tried before?
Exactly.
But I don't want to get. So essentially, Chris kind of let some of his opinions slip a little bit, and he has deemed it unnecessary. He used all of his authority that he's gained over the decade of, I would say, being the main producer of this podcast, and he made the chief decision of this movie is not worth a standalone review. So we are tacking it on to the end of this episode, but I don't know. I feel like the conversation will be fun either way. So
it's gonna be.
I think this is gonna end up being kind of like an extra large episode. You know, it's not a 2-for-1 Big Mac special, but it's like you're getting a Big Mac and maybe
it's a double Big Mac. It's not a 2-for-1, but it's a double Big Mac. It's like
there you go.
Not two separate things, but it's a little bit thicker on that Mac because they sell those.
Yes,
now.
Less buns but more beef.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But anyways, let's not give anything away. Let's jump into some news. Last week, everyone knows we recorded before the Super Bowl, pretty early for Mike, and I appreciate that for him. So we did that, and we really, for Super Bowl 58, we watched it here. We had a really good time on Paramount Plus. I mentioned my theater TV or my movie poster TV having the scores, right? Fun fact, Paramount Plus runs on a 30-plus second delay on live television. So the score was updating faster than the actual football game sometimes. So people were like, I'm like, well, just sit closer. You don't have to look at it. It's fine. It's not like visible when you're watching the screen if you're a little closer. But that was really fun. But I want to talk about some commercials, Mike, because here's the conundrum I've run into. I don't remember very many commercials a week later. In the moment, very hot. Very, very fun. But I can't remember a lot of them other than the State Farm with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, the NABA thing. I really enjoy that. That was really fun. And all I've seen is the Dunkin' Donuts, the Ben Affleck Dunkin' Donuts thing.
Interesting. I haven't seen that one kind of pop back up in the feed. Like I said at the top of the show, the benefit of doing this a week later, only the cream rises to the top. And the only single commercial I can recall, which I actually really loved because it's just weird enough to like lodge in your brain, kind of like what is it, like Baby Monkey? Is that the one from Mountain Dew or is it Doritos?
It wasn't Mountain Dew. It was like Monkey Puppy Baby kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So the one that's sticking onto my gray matter is all of the bird mascots from the NFL flying in migrations. And it's like a wildlife documentary, and you can like see like a flock of like, literal Eagles players like flapping through the sky. I love that one. And since the game went into overtime, there was a few extra kind of commercial slots,
some replays
slotted. So I got to see that I think like maybe 3 times, and I enjoyed that one. So I would put my vote into that one for most memorable.
I honestly don't remember that one. If that tells you anything on my end. I was immediately enthralled with Arnold Schwarzenegger leaning into his accent, his Austrian accent, and I was like, oh, this is really, and they just kept going. They just kept going, and then the real cherry on top was from Twins and what's the other movie where one of them they're both pregnant dudes. They played in those movies in the late 80s, early 90s, right together.
Oh, God, why can't I think of the name? Like, I can envision the poster so clearly.
It's not Look
Head.
Who's Talking. It's not Expecting. It's,
Oh, my God. This is the point where people scream.
I know. It's fine. Well, it's not like everyone's going back and watching this movie, but it was fun to see them together again for the first time in a very long time. So, absolutely commercials. And I was going to say there were several movie trailers, I don't have. I originally had Wicked in here, but it's not. We actually got more news enough to push Wicked off of the bullets. I have recently watched that play for the first time, and a lot of people are very interested in it because it's a part 1, part 2. The play is very split down the middle with the intermission, so that looked cool. But I was gonna say I was wrong, and we didn't get a full Deadpool trailer, Mike. We got a micro Deadpool trailer and pushed to go watch online, which I was doing on my phone, running around the house while the game was on, trying to juggle my food that was going off, and then watching the Super Bowl thing.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I was like, I know Chris is entertaining a group of people. Does he have the balls to turn the game off and switch it over to YouTube and force all these people?
I've got enough TVs
now?
To do it, but no, I didn't. I watched it on my phone.
I started to dive a little too deep into like the Twitter like hashtags and stuff. I wanted to see what the internet was like talking about. So I forced myself to go watch the trailer maybe earlier than I normally would have because I didn't want it to be spoiled. But just so everybody knows, the movie is Junior, the one where...
there it is. I knew it was a single word. I was like, I knew it's a single word somewhere. Where can we get that? But thank you for looking that up. But yeah. So, but we got the confirmation. Deadpool and Wolverine is the title of the movie, Mike. And it is now, or it has the record of being the most viewed trailer of all time, passing Spider-Man: No Way Home, which was previously which passed Marvel's Endgame, Avengers Endgame beforehand. So
and that is the hype. That is the kind of hype that Disney needs to drive around their superhero film franchise. They need that energy back. I have anecdotal evidence out there in the world that Chris and I like to call the normies, which are the type of people that would not listen to this podcast but go to the movies and use their hard-earned money to buy tickets. And I was at an OBGYN baby appointment with my wife, and I heard just like a gaggle of nurses behind the nurses stand talking about the trailer. And this was a couple days later, but they were like, "Oh, did you see the Deadpool trailer? Oh, I'm excited. Oh, Wolverine's supposed to be in it. Oh, I hope it's Hugh Jackman. I hope he's coming back." So I was like, "Oh wow, we are
Nobody
so
knows.
deep into it. We are so deep into this, Chris, that we just assume all 8 billion people on this planet already have seen the set footage and know that Hugh Jackman is returning.
The second worst kept secret in Hollywood, next to our next topic. But absolutely, there are a lot of people who just don't know, I think now people. I had a conversation about this. We'll talk about it later, but like they reference Marvel and Disney specifically in this trailer. Towards the camera, nod and wink, so everyone's like, okay, now we're back in the MCU kind of thing with it.
Yeah, so it's like the hype is real. If we're just hearing, like, for lack of a better term, people off the street talking about this movie, they are already hitting a higher batting average than the last like 5 Marvel movies that have come out. Yeah. So I keep telling Chris kind of off mic in text messages that if this movie doesn't break $1 billion, like, I don't know, Disney declares bankruptcy. I know it's hyperbolic, but like they got to hit that $1 billion worldwide target.
If you can hit $1 billion with an R-rated movie, I will be impressed. That's going to be its only gate is the R-rated. If not that it matters to anybody, but like there are some people who like, I can't take my kids to see this, or I don't want to go watch an R-rated movie if I can't take my kids, something like that. So that would be the only blocker I see on this, and they do lean into some of that. They lean into the rudeness in the trailer. Like I don't think it's a red band trailer on YouTube. I couldn't tell, obviously because it's not rated yet, but like it does lean into the rudeness of it.
Yeah, it's like we just watched it. It's kind of weird that they can just outright say pegging, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of swearing attached to it. Yeah. But it's let's talk about the trailer. It's exciting. It gets me right back into it. It's been so long since I've kind of indulged in Deadpool in general. Like, I don't even know if I've ever rewatched Deadpool 2, surprisingly, since I think it came out in 2018. So it was nice kind of just seeing new, fresh Deadpool stuff that's not just like annoying internet memes where people think they're being extra funny. I kind of forgotten just how awesome the action is in these movies. Like, there's an awesome like reload scene, there's like throwing knives, there's just sweet like choreography that I just forget that Deadpool is also like an awesome action movie. And
that's when you think about that, is like, again, you go back to the leaked scene from Deadpool that got the movie made, right, where he's on the bridge and jumps down in the car. That awesome action, like the solo action scenes. Deadpool is a mercenary with skills to kill, if you will. I didn't want to rhyme, but there we are. And it does set that up. What is cool to me about this trailer is, or funny, it sets up, hey, he's having a birthday party with all the people, even the people who were killed / he, rezzed with Cable's time machine at the end of Deadpool 2. We've not seen him long enough. He's quote unquote grown hair on him, and he kicks right into the TVA, which we're familiar with for Marvel from the Loki show. And then we get just a montage of, mystery action scenes, familiar things and places to really say this movie's connected to a lot more things than we think it is. And obviously, we are in this more than other people. We know a lot more. We've seen the set photos. We know that big sign is 20th Century Fox right behind him. I don't know what how to put that to somebody else who doesn't know, but I'm very excited for this. To see this. I enjoyed seeing the Avengers scenes in the TVA. I don't know if you caught those, right? Obviously, they were there. If you look at the bottom left, actually, it shows Deadpool accepting like an award speech. It's like one of the smaller screens. They've done that. The scene where he throws his hands up and says "Wait." Remember, that's a reference from the first movie. That's the turned over scene truck from Logan. Actually, if you look into it a little bit. I don't know if I point out to you, but at one point he's sitting in the Hulk's bed from Thor Ragnarok in there. I don't know if you saw that scene. Big teeth.
Oh, I didn't realize there was so many like direct connections.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now that you mentioned the Logan part of it, now my brain instantly goes to, oh, is he going to rescue Logan from the Logan movie? And is that going to be the Wolverine that we see in this movie?
It is not that Wolverine. They said it's not Logan. This takes place before Logan. But he's fighting the TVA there, and there's snow. That scene actually didn't have snow in that movie. So is it like an alternate universe? Did he arrive too late, and he needs to go back farther in time to get Wolverine in that universe?
Yeah.
I actually secret I didn't know, and honestly it surprised me. The character who played Pyro from the X-Men 2 and X-Men 3 was in this trailer. I didn't know he was in this movie. Actually, he's like one of the few actors I didn't know was coming back for this.
Yeah, kind of a deep cut. I'm sure some hardcore people who rewatch the Singer X-Men every year could recognize his face. But yeah, I definitely had to be told who he was. But that's cool to bring a character like that back. It's just awesome to see the TVA stuff, because that's the coolest thing happening in Marvel right now. When we reviewed season 2 of Loki, I reiterated that as well. I wonder if there's like a benefit, because this movie, had been delayed a few times. It'd been in production for a while. I think theoretically it started at Fox before they were acquired by Disney. Well, so I'm hoping all of these kind of unintentional just delays of just, a corporation being a corporation worked out in its favor, because it bumped the movie up enough in time to where it could take advantage of the existence of the TVA. And I think that's great. I mean, I'm super looking forward to somebody like Deadpool, this crazy madcap character, falling into like this like bureaucratic like time-space office. That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, and he calls himself Marvel Jesus at one point. In the middle of it, a lot of people that I saw that hashtag everywhere, hashtag Marvel Jesus, really latching onto that one. We in the Super Bowl spot, which is different than the actual trailer, we get to see a little more of a blurry Hugh Jackman in his Wolverine suit than we do in the final, because we just get like he leans over, has the claws. Now I will say there are two cool things left. One is we get to see the back of Wolverine at a poker table, right? And that's supposed to be Madripoor. Rumor is that that's not Hugh Jackman, but an alternate Wolverine, someone playing Wolverine in that one.
Yeah,
so,
I saw some those clickbait articles of like, oh, that's got to be Daniel Radcliffe, and people analyzing like shoulder broadness in the jacket.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's fun. There's another scene with miniguns or little Uzis. Did you notice that? That is Lady Deadpool's weapon of choice when you read her stuff. So it's kind of hinting at Lady Deadpool. And then lastly, there's a Secret Wars, the 2014 series comic book, or I think it's 2015, 2016, to the left of Deadpool was on the gun, with the green soda that Stan Lee drank in the Hulk, that turned him into the Hulk there, on top of that magazine. So they are literally, you want to be Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the meme pointing at the TV saying that, this is the movie for you, Mike. I feel this is going to be that thing that's got all these deep cuts, the weird references. Do they have time to drop in a Madam Web reference before this movie comes out, Mike? Possibly. They could.
Yeah, it is possible. And also, I think the one thing that's really working for this movie, like I mentioned, Deadpool 2 came out in 2018. We have had time to miss the character. They haven't been cramming Deadpool movies in our face, every other year, or having Deadpool cameo in another movie. Like, we have been left wanting, and we're so excited to see him back. The magic trick of, like, his character has not worn off. So I think everything is coalescing really, really, really well for this movie. And Ryan Reynolds is at the height of his powers. Like, one could argue that after this movie, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, Ryan Reynolds has everything he could ever want, right? But you could say he will never be as big of a hitter in Hollywood as he is when this movie comes out. Just because how do you top like your Deadpool like trilogy? You know, he's got like soccer teams, he's got his own like commercial company, he's got alcohol companies. Like, you know, it's kind of like George Clooney, right? He is a permanent fixture in Hollywood that's never going anywhere and will always be popular. But you know, George Clooney hit his zenith at some point in time. So I'm
Ocean's 11.
Yes, I'm predicting the zenith of Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool 3, and then he'll have like a nice cool down, but he'll never get so cold that, you know, people won't want him. So
I think the other thing is I disagree. I think this gives him money and I guess leeway. Not that he needs money or leeway. He can go do anything he wants, like you said, to do fun projects, right? Like what was Spirited a couple was it last year, 2 years ago on Apple TV, right? The musical with Will Ferrell. He's doing what If? Is he in If or voicing a character in If?
He might be. No, wasn't that the?
It's a John Krasinski.
I'm trying to remember. It's a John Krasinski film, but I think Ryan Reynolds is in it.
I'm pretty sure he is. I think he's like the human. If not, how about the Adam Project? Right, a high concept sci-fi movie. Not the best movie in the world, but he was still able to do a sci-fi movie. And that kid went on to do Percy Jackson. That recently came out. It's getting rave reviews on Disney Plus. So he might hit his zenith, yes, but I don't think he's gonna slow down. I think he's gonna just be doing these little fun little projects that no one else will ever get to do. Low budget movies, right? No one's doing low budget movies right now. And you know, bring along everyone he wants to do with it, all his friends, and to show. Now that he's friends with Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman posted the new title instead of Deadpool and Wolverine. He calls it Wolverine and Asshole in the fonts, which is fun. I'm glad they included Wolverine in the title. If I'm going to be completely honest, that's going to bring in that audience you mentioned, the non-nerds, the casual viewers who have watched Hugh Jackman for 25 years, right? Be Wolverine, who suffered through X-Men Origins Wolverine and got to this point. So I'm excited. The title's Deadpool and Wolverine. This 225 trailer hype through the roof. Absolutely loving it. And I'm excited for Marvel's one movie this year, Mike. That's pretty exciting. On the flip side, Marvel's exciting me even more for next year with the again, worst kept secret in Hollywood, the official casting announcement of the Fantastic Four. And on Valentine's Day, with a confirmation, it's a new title, Mike. It's called The Fantastic Four. I know, huge difference. New artwork, new logo, concept art shows the people in the costumes, and there's so many secrets in here. So many little Easter eggs along the way, Mike. One of them being, obviously, I've seen this article to death, is that The Thing is reading a Time magazine from December 1963. Leaning to this movie possibly being set in 63, 64, if you will.
Yeah,
but
I think that's incredibly exciting, because that's the first thing I want to talk about. I mean, we'll talk about the casting, but like as you said before, Chris, if you're plugged into this world, you kind of knew about some of these things already. Yep. But it's exciting to imagine more of a period piece movie, because the last one we got, really outside of like Captain Marvel being in the 90s, which I suppose if you're young enough is sadly a period piece for you, but was Captain America the First Avenger, right? That was solid. It's a period piece, but I feel like it's so solidly set within the confines of World War II. It feels more of like a war movie and less of a period movie.
Right.
So I think this is going to be fun, going back to the 60s, seeing how like society is like back then. I'm curious how this hooks all into the MCU overall. I mean, you could do a Fantastic Four trilogy set in the 60s and 70s, depending on how far you want to age it, right? Or, you know, is just the first movie set in the 60s and then they time jump to the future, fall through a portal. I'm curious how they end up meeting the rest of this universe. That's my big question.
So there's two things to this. One is, if it's set in 63, which is even the costumes, they have Herbie the robot, right? This is all very 60s, the astronaut suits. If it's set in the mid 60s, that is fine by me. The villain is still rumoredly, as we've talked about, Galactus, right? Silver Surfer. Maybe at the end of the movie they have to go to space to protect the Earth, right? Or draw Galactus or something away. They're out in space due to time dilation. They come back. It's the
good point.
Mid 2020s, which is great. And Doctor Strange references them, right, in his movie Multiverse of Madness. He's like, "Oh, Fantastic Four, didn't you chart in the '60s?" Meaning he probably hasn't seen them since the '60s. The other part of this, and this is, I'm just going to throw this out here as an idea I had, is what if the Fantastic Four is set in a different universe where like it's like they are in a different multiverse, because right, the Secret Wars is the next movie after that, right, where they come together. They don't need to be in the MCU and tied to everything. They can have their own world, their own quirks, and then are pulled into the MCU in their next film, which would be Secret Wars. That way they don't have to have that baggage.
I mean, that is true, and that's an interesting idea. I do think there is an advantage, though, of keeping characters tied into the MCU at large, or I guess the sacred timeline, or whatever you want to call it, because I feel like you're going to bring a little bit more inherited just love for the characters, empathy for the characters is what I'm looking for from the audience, because, oh, they inhabit this world with all these characters that I know. If they come from a different universe, theoretically anything could be different. It's kind of like when Doctor Strange was, going to that Captain Carter, other Mr. Fantastic universe, whatever number they attributed to that. Like when they all got like absolutely murdered by Wanda, like I didn't really, of course I'm empathetic to, to murder in general in the real world, but I was like, oh, I don't have any affinity for these characters. I don't really know their backstory. I don't know their family. I don't know their plight. But I guess if you have a whole movie set in an alternate universe and we get to know them, that can be different. But there are some fun things that they could do if they stay in our mainline sacred timeline. They could, theoretically, know Hank Pym. They could know Howard Stark, possibly in some way. There could be some connections there. But I do really like the idea that you're floating, that they need to all agree as a family that they kind of have to almost sacrifice their lives in a way of like going out into space, and they say we all have to agree because once we come back to Earth, we're going to be, it's going to be.
Well, I would say I would even
so
say
many
that
years in the future.
They don't even say that. I think they just need to say like we're going out here. There may not be a way to come home, kind of thing, right? And then when they get, to me, it's more of the realization they get there. Oh, this is not the place we left, right? We've gone forward 60 years.
Yeah, because it's a great explanation of like, well, where have they been? Like, if they're so influential and so powerful and super powered, why haven't they affected like culture at all on planet Earth? The last.
And people may think
so.
they did. Maybe that people think they did die in space, right? Like people are like, oh, they left Earth and they died, and never came back, and kind of gave up on it.
So I like that pitch, and you can already see the final scene of the movie, the after credit scene, the after credit scene, whatever you want to do. Of they finally make it back to Earth, but they would need. This is, if they go this way, this is a bit of a stickler in me, but I absolutely demand it. You have to explain why the time dilation kind of affects them, but doesn't seem to affect like anybody in the the Guardians of the Galaxy. It could be, I guess, a different type of like warp drive that they
the Guardians and Captain Marvel use those portals, right, that we saw in the Marvels, the jump gates, and maybe if they're using older, for humans 60s technology, they're not given that same thing, or maybe it's it could be dimensional, right? There's the negative zone, they touched on in in the Ultimate.
Oh, that's true. Comics. Yeah, they could be doing something with that.
Dimensional.
But speaking of the negative zone, we have to just talk about all of the super scientific-y casted people.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess we talk about Pedro first. As you said, worst kept secret in Hollywood. I really like seeing him in his little sweater and that fun little classic illustration style on that Valentine's Day card.
Yeah, so we have two artworks. The official one, and I forget who the artist is on this, and I feel horrible. But there's one also by Phil Noto, an artist for Marvel, and you get to see the reason I bring up Phil Noto is because they did the same suits for both images, right? Like they are in these outfits, so they're essentially they're costumes, and yes, there's the blue turtleneck. It's got like the I guess the textures, the vertical lines on the top of it. They even give him the gray temples. Like they give Pedro the gray Mr. Fantastic temples on his hair, if you will, which looks really cool. And then obviously the tall white boots and the belt. So this is going to be interesting to see these suits come to life. And then in the Phil Noto, you actually get to see he drew a very, very long arm on Pedro. Do you see that? Like on the second link in our show notes.
Oh, yeah. I'm just seeing it now.
Yeah, Mr. Fantastic. So they show a little bit. The first image doesn't really give their abilities away. It's just the dynamic of the family, if you will. The second one kind of shows that off. And then obviously Pedro Pascal. And then moving on to Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. Her outfit is a little different than his because she has the white turtleneck rather than the blue.
Oh, yeah. And it's just fun seeing them because there's no easy way to modernize these characters and then logistically explain them in kind of like their more iconic vintage garb. So this is like a really fun way to do it. And then you could even kind of slightly modernize these outfits whenever they possibly make it into the future because that's what they're used to. They don't want to just go ahead and start, dressing in Shein or H&M, clothing like right off the bat.
Right. Yep, and then we get the next confirmation. Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things. He will be playing the Human Torch.
Eddie Munson. I mean, this seems like this is a pretty good casting. I mean, you kind of, struck lightning with that character in Stranger Things, and we all saw his demise in the season, which was pretty impactful. Everyone fell in love with his character, so I think that's great casting for both sides. You get a big name, but not insanely established, because we do know even with all these Marvel projects going forward, they are still kind of on a more of a budget conscious mind, right? They're not going to blow everything on casting. So this seems like a good kind of middle down the road casting for that type of character.
Exactly. Get him while he's hot, right? Like, after Stranger Things and all that.
Hot, literally hot.
He's
going to be the Torch.
He's going to be the Human Torch. And then lastly, we have the Thing, played by Ebon Moss-Bachrach. Most notably for we talked about him being Micro in The Punisher or in the cousin in The Bear. Great, man! I love this. He has his own kind of standalone episode in season 2 of The Bear. It's one of the best episodes in the entire season. So if you want a primer on this guy, go watch The Bear. That and also Andor. He was whenever Andor went to the planet to sneak in, and they were making the plans out in the woods. He was one of the guys in the woods with them. Yeah,
I don't think he makes it past episode 4?
No. He's in the middle 3. So he's in the middle 3. He's in there for a little bit. But great actor, obviously. Fun fact, he is the first Jewish actor to play the Thing who is Jewish in the comic books. Everyone else has not been. So if you want a little fun water cooler fact for people out there, you can say he's the first Jewish actor to play that. And what's cool about the Thing is obviously, the other ones, they're leaning into the Michael Chiklis era thing, the comic book thing, like bright orange, right, bright blue eyes, big heavy bottom lip. So I feel like we're gonna have a really good comic book iteration of the Thing on the screen here.
I'm curious how they're going to adapt the Thing to screen. I think it would be kind of fun. Maybe it would also lean into like the 60s aesthetic. Maybe if they kind of do kind of part practical, part CG. Put like these like rocks on to the character, right? Foam, whatever you want to make them. So you're getting like unique motion from the character, and then apply maybe like CG emotions to the rock face, or like add like extra detail that maybe you can't quite get in the props department. I think that would be really fun.
Well, the one thing I will say, Marvel, I never have any doubt with them bringing CGI characters to life either, right? Look at Thanos, the Black Order character. Like, they have done such a great job with full CG characters. So I think they're going to knock it out of the park. And with Iron Man, before it was all CGI, they were using real suits, right, for Iron Man and modeling that, Spider-Man, stuff like that. So I have full faith in them bringing that to life for this. And then the last bit, Herbie is the bot. Herbie, fun fact, was created in the 1970s Fantastic Four cartoon because the Human Torch wasn't in that show. He was licensed for a movie deal that never came to fruition, obviously, so they couldn't use the Human Torch in the animated shows. So they created Herbie for that, and he just embodies 60s technology, right? When you go to Tomorrowland at Disney, I expect to see something like Herbie there, right? Like a little robot that's got a little personality, a little fun. So I'm excited to see who they get to voice act Herbie for the spot. And then, you know,
I feel like if let's make guesses. I feel like it's either Alan Tudyk or Bill Hader.
Alan Tudyk's in the DC universe. Alan Tudyk's in the DC universe thoroughly. I don't think, but to me, it's gonna, you know, they obviously with Iron Man and Spider-Man, they used a lot of AI voices that were fun. Even Loki, the Miss Minutes was kind of, yeah, they've got pretty good voice actors. So I actually have no idea who Herbie could be, but I will tell you, looking at Herbie and thinking about, you know, the in post-credit scene of them coming back, is finding Herbie kind of like R2-D2 in like The Force Awakens, like asleep or hibernation or in storage because nobody knew what to do with him.
Covered in dust, and the camera slowly zooms in, and then suddenly like an LED, like an SOS, like LED starts like flashing. Yeah, we're not doing. Kirby's like, they're back.
They've already done that. I think, I don't even know if he'll be dust covered, but like he looks like one of those robots who would like be like, hey, I've kept everything clean while you've been gone, kind of thing.
He's like a Wall-E, if you will.
Yeah, kind of like looks like a little Wall-E.
There is an advantage to having like a voiceless character. I think that some beeps and boops could also be pretty charming on Herbie.
No, absolutely. But this was just a nice Valentine's Day treat, Mike. Like, even though we knew most of it, to see the artwork, see the logo type has changed, right? We're not getting that linear blue Fantastic Four, the modern one. They went back, retroed it again, directed by Matt Shakman, who did WandaVision. So I have full faith he can do period pieces thoroughly in this.
This is great. Everything, like, we're going to be talking about another Marvel comic book trailer here coming up in 2 segments. Everything is starting to kind of turn the other way with Marvel in general over at Disney. I feel like the ship wheel has finally started to turn. You know, we're starting to round that corner, right the course, if you will.
The delays are paying dividends, if you will. Like the individual things are paying dividends because this could have been rushed out. It could have been done. I mean, this actually has a new release date of July 25th, 2024, which is 2 weeks after Superman Legacy, by the way. So that's going to be interesting to see how that. Most movies die after 2 weeks anyway, so it's fine. But this we'll talk about that other trailer in a little bit. Like I think the delays, the other trailer. Say it's X-Men 97. It could have come out 2 years ago if they wanted to, Mike. I feel right. Like they could have rushed that out and be like, "Hey, we've got more content for you on Disney Plus. Get out here and watch it." But I think that delay has added to it. We'll talk about that. Anything else on Fantastic Four, because that July 25th date did move another movie. Anything else you want to add before we shift gears?
I mean, Marvel could be putting a stake back into the July date. When they had more releases coming out per year, we were seeing like end of March, May releases, and they were flanking it maybe with a later in the year release.
November was the other one, but
yeah, so it seems like now when you have like a little less on your release calendar, it's just like, oh, we're going back to old school. Like, remember when those Spider-Man Raimi movies used to come out like July? Like, I'm actually shocked it's not July 4th holiday, to be real. But we
Superman Legacy. It's because of Superman Legacy.
Well, but even with Deadpool that's coming out at the end of July this year, I don't know what's taking place at the July 4th holiday this year, but it's not out of the ordinary for movies to be moved up kind of last minute a couple of weeks, because it's more of like an excitement PR push. Like, oh, guess what? You get to see the movie, 2-3 weeks early now. So there could be like a last minute strategy in there as well. Who knows? Production delays could hit Superman for totally non-nefarious reasons, and maybe they have to push that release. So there's always things could always shuffle a little bit.
Despicable Me 4 has the July date. So
screw it. Destroy them, move it up.
Okay, yeah, I don't think Deadpool. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think. Yeah, it'll be fine. But anyway, so July 25th. It was originally I think November of that year, maybe. It's moved up to July, which July 25th was originally the Thunderbolts release date, and everyone's like, oh, because he didn't mention it the other day. Bob Iger didn't mention it. It's dead. He's gonna kill it. Marvel's come out and said no. Thunderbolts is moving up to May 3rd, 2025. And this was confirmed by Marvel. So literally for 2025 currently, we have Captain America 4 in March, Thunderbolts in May, and Fantastic Four in July. So we're getting like what, 3 or a couple months in between these. Really for a little bit there, and possibly Blade in November. I'm not going to hold that date until somebody says filming started on that movie yet. Mm-hmm. So it's only affected Thunderbolts in a good way, the other direction. So all these movies are going to start filming pretty soon. So that's pretty cool at the end of the day. You mentioned the trailer we talked about. X-Men 97 dropped its first trailer here. So it comes on. It shows us a tube TV giving us an abbreviation of the final scenes of X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. Xavier has presumably died. The X-Men are there with Magneto, trying to live on his legacy. And then we get to see the new show kind of pop in. Hey, here's what it's going to be. Here's some cool stuff. Here's the voice actors and stuff. I am thoroughly impressed how much this show looks like the 90s show, Mike. Like the it's not identical, obviously, because we're not doing, we're doing artwork on computers now. But like even the missing frames, like it's like at a half frame rate for the voices in the action, just like animation, cheap animation in the 90s would have looked like. The voice actors are returning for a lot of the characters or their new roles. It was just so not nostalgic, but I'm like, oh, I remember watching this. Like it just took me right back.
It is an absolutely perfect trailer. I don't have any notes, and this is exactly how they should have executed it. Like you were mentioning the opening, I love it. It's perfect. Prime me with what X-Men used to look like back in the day. And how we used to watch it as well. They even kind of dress the set a little bit, where it's like you're watching it in kind of like a 90s aesthetic living room. We're slowly pulling in and getting right back into the moment, like right where we left off. Mm-hmm. I saw comments out there that said if the show doesn't premiere with the iconic voice line of previously on X-Men, like we're rioting. So, and then the visual style is perfect. I love it. And you hit the nail on the head where it's like they're modernizing it just because you have to. You're not going to create the show just like how it was made in the past. We're using more modern technologies, but you're leaning into it. They're kind of doing exactly what you should be doing with nostalgia. You remember it differently as a child. And if you go back and rewatch it, you're not capturing the same magic. So you have to kind of inject a little bit more excitement and energy into it, because you're not trying to duplicate what was made one-to-one. You're trying to duplicate the feeling you had when you watched it. And that's exactly what this feels like. I was going frame by frame on some parts, like especially when Wolverine is like riding on Gambit's back.
Oh, the Gambit charging his claws. That's going to be a killer scene to watch.
So awesome. Like, what a great idea. The tone is amazing. The theme song.
I was waiting for you to bring up the music, because
through the trailer is like so exciting. Yeah. It has just that kind of right level of cheese to it. I know we're just kind of jumping all around the trailer right now, but even like Magneto kind of doing all but twirling his like invisible mustache at the end. He's he left it all to me, and you're just like, no. And it's just, everything about this is amazing. I'm so excited for it. And I wasn't expecting to feel like this. I was kind of cooling on 90s X-Men because I thought like, oh, are we overhyping this property? I'm not saying it was bad by any means. It definitely made accomplishments, but I was like, the landscape has just changed so much. Is there anything left there? And like this trailer just like brought me right back to it.
Well, it's a risk, right? It's like anything you try to touch 30 years later. Is it still there? Is the audience there? Obviously the audience is there, but like some of that stuff, it was cheap. It wasn't made with money. It wasn't made with it had care, but like it wasn't the same, right? They were just like, we had to churn out 23 episodes a year of this.
This show was also infamously like tossed between like animation production companies. So like the quality of the show changes between seasons. So like and that's just like unfortunately what happens with a lot of like animated kid shows. They're just like tossing it around. They're just trying to get to syndication. They don't care so much about the narrative because they're like, kids aren't gonna care.
Well, they want people with superpowers, and that's what X-Men is. Everyone has a power in it. You have big Sentinels. You had cool stuff to see. So to me, this really just kind of blew me away with how true they're sticking to it, and how, again, it doesn't feel like a cash in. It feels like hey, we're doing something we want to do here, and we're doing it with people who care about it, which was cool. One of the fun things about this is release date's March 20th, Mike. We're just about a month away from watching this dude on Disney Plus. 10 episodes, new characters, new stuff like that. Really, really excited to see what this looks like, and maybe it'll get another season. Maybe it won't. Maybe this will wrap up the story. I don't know, but this is we are prime X-Men era with Deadpool this year, right? Revisiting some of those cameos. I mean, so this is great.
I mean, I hope this is popular because it would be a fun jumping off point, right? Because there's so much that happens just within the X-Men universe, especially with comic books, that the movies just aren't really ever going to be able to touch, because sometimes X-Men just gets really, really weird because it's extremely like science fiction based with some storylines.
It's got space. It's got like it's got space adventures, alternate dimensions. They have everything in there. Future timelines, past timelines. Yeah.
So it would be fun, like maybe after like 1 or 2 seasons of this X-Men 97, just like blow up the team, right? Yeah. Kill off some characters, do some stuff that you're never going to be able to touch in the movies. I think that can be really fun.
X-Men's great. With the inclusion of Beast at the end of Captain Marvel, right? From this, his look from this, Deadpool, Wolverine, X-Men 97. It's just, it feels so good, Mike, to be an X-Men fan. So we'll keep you guys posted as it comes out, because we're a month away. We got a comment on our video for people who don't know we're live streaming on YouTube. Someone says they showed up to the premiere for Madam Web looking like Mistress Web and her stable of underage brothel employees, Mike. So we're gonna have to come back to that here in a little bit. But
I think they're talking about the
thumbnail
featured image.
Yeah, absolutely.
Threw up the ladies from the premiere.
We're not even into Star Wars or DC yet, but let's get through this. Star Wars. Respawn, the company who is known for making Titanfall and the Star Wars Jedi games, is making an FPS game for Star Wars, Mike. And the current rumor, highly rumored, is to feature a Mandalorian main character and their gear. So you get the jetpacks, the grapple hooks, the rockets, the visors, all that fun stuff as you play through this game.
You know how I feel about traversal mechanics in video games, so I'm all for this. I was always the annoying guy in what Halo multiplayer was it with Halo 3, where I'm like, yes, jetpack every time. I don't care if it was Reach.
It was Reach. Yeah.
If it makes me a target out there in the world, I'm always picking the jetpack. And I know Halo has grappling hooks now. I never had a chance to play with it, but yeah, give me all the tools. Give me the fun little wrist rockets where they're like the size of like a nickel, but apparently can destroy a tank, which never really made sense. But I want all that.
Well, exactly. And here's the best part. As we saw in the first season of The Mandalorian, guess what you do? You upgrade your armor. You complete bounties. You get money. You get better gear, right? It's built into the storyline as a Mandalorian. And you can actually feature other planets because Mandalore was destroyed. So you get to go around doing all sorts of stuff, hunting bounties, doing shootouts. I would love to, my thing is multiplayer. I would love to play this with 3 to 4 friends, right? Like having a group of people take down bigger bosses or bigger bounties and getting the loot and the money from it so you can upgrade your gear and do better. So this is fantastic. Titanfall is a good game to explain. They use a lot of jetpacks and like really fast mobility in that game. So couple that with the Star Wars IP layered over it, and I am good to go.
I will only buy this game if there's a Timothy Oliphant skin. Okay. I want to be that
out of context. That sounds
sheriff,
weird, but like
with the perfectly white graying coiffed hair from. Was that Boba Fett or was that Mandalorian?
It was Mandalorian to start because he got Boba Fett's armor from him in season 2.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Boba Fett showed up all gray and scaly, and then got better.
There you go. Respawn. If you want my $70+ get that Timothy Oliphant license.
What I love about the Star Wars Jedi games, they are single player games with no DLC, no add-on packs. They add updates for free. I love a good single player game too. I know I mentioned I want to shoot with my friends. That's fine, but if they do a good single player story with no DLC, count me in as well. So down to clown with that. DCU. We have been blessed with a lot of DCU leaks over the years. However, on Twitter / Reddit, whichever one it is, the main DCU leaker has stepped away from the leaks. It's probably because he was busted from all the reports dropping and James Gunn living on social media instead of making movies. So that's a bummer for that, but it leads into some of these other bullets below that we'll talk about.
I like to imagine whoever it is, they're like literally in a jail cell at Warner Brothers right now, and everyone's like, "This isn't legal. No due process has happened." And he's like, "No, we put him on the Warner Brothers studio tour. You can see him as you drive by. You look at the set of Friends. You get to see the fountain. Oh, here's the leaker that we illegally imprisoned. Don't talk to him because he knows things that you're not supposed to.
Well,
know
I wonder who from the DCEU is pissed off enough to leak this stuff. That's my question, right? Like,
you think it's like vengeful leak?
Yeah.
Not like, hey, look at this fun info I have. It's like, no, we gotta juice the Snyder fans.
It's Ray Fisher using his cyborg abilities to hack into the Warner Brothers servers. But yeah, we'll see more about this. Again, all the information, and there's only like 2 co-chairs, Peter Safran, James Gunn, it's probably someone they knew, and they were probably like, oh, busted for that. On Valentine's Day, Todd Phillips shared some Joker Folie à Deux images, and he says that the trailer is coming in April. So those excited for the Joker sequel can check these images out with the Joker and Harley Quinn, Joaquin Phoenix, and Lady Gaga. Looks like they are madly in love, Mike. Emphasis on madly because they're crazy people. But it is cool to see the full Joker makeup on Joaquin Phoenix this time.
I'm curious what the Lady Gaga effect is going to have on the box office overall. I mean, the first Joker movie was incredibly successful. I am curious how much of the drama around the release, kind of juiced some of those numbers, because somebody's gonna watch this movie and gonna go blow up a hospital. There was some crazy stuff people were throwing around when that first Joker movie came out, and then it just all of those worries just died in an instant of nobody's doing that. It's actually a fairly competent movie and it's good. But when you throw a Lady Gaga effect into it, is it going to be exponential? Is it going to make even more money? Because that first one, it made a pretty penny, and a lot of it was profit. So I'm curious to see how this one blows up the box office. Is this going to be the movie that financially pays for all of James Gunn's projects?
It could. Here's my concern. Is this a musical? And I don't mean that I'm concerned it's a musical, but is this movie a musical? And they're hiding it from us? Because then you show up and you're expecting a movie and you get a musical. That's going to really be a bad thing if they don't. If it is a musical, don't. No, that's what happened. That's what happened to Mean Girls. That's what happened to the Mean Girls remake. No one knew it was a musical. They went in and nobody saw it. Or the people were there. They're mad. Left. So it's fine if it's a musical. I don't care. Go for it. Have a good time. This movie shouldn't even exist. It's pure luck that the guy from the Hangover movies is getting 2 Joker movies and has 2 very, very popular actors and a musician in it as a main role. So if you want to do a musical, hell, go on it, have a musical. It's crazy. But looking at these images, the first one it's got this very studio light set around them, right? Very much hey, this is a 2-person, we're focusing on them in a play kind of feel, right? Mm-hmm. The second image is more, as it's a prison kind of thing, interesting. But the third one, if you look in the background, that moon is fake. This is all 1920s sets behind them, and it looks like they're dancing. So is it a musical?
Yeah, is this going to be just his vision of reality, what he is seeing, or are we getting very experimental and it's just going to be up to the audience's interpretation? You hit it perfectly, Chris. This movie shouldn't exist. This franchise is so out of the ordinary. There's no rules to it, right? There's no cinematic universe that's going to be built around Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, because I don't want to call him a flight risk, but I mean, I feel like this is the type of actor that gets tempted by other things often. Like
Napoleon.
Other different roles. So I could easily see this being his last outing as Joker.
Yeah. And if they somehow pull off a third one, I wouldn't be surprised either, Mike, because no rules. Rules aren't applying to this movie at all.
No, the third movie is going to be an experimental escape room. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. It's not even going to go to the theaters. You're going to have to escape the Joker's hideout, and that's going to be.
I think it's going to be what was it? A Scanner Darkly, where they rotoscope the whole movie.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
Like they're going for different styles. How can we push people away so much they actually want to come see the movie, Mike? That's what they're shooting for here. Honestly, look at this. What if it's through Harley Quinn's point of view? Like, what if the movie is from Harley Quinn's point of view, and that's her vision of love on the rooftop, right? The moons. That's not his. So I don't know. There's a lot to question. I'm excited for the trailer. So we'll get that in April, according to Todd Phillips. One of the rumors from the leaker earlier this week, James Gunn said at least one of these is not true, and the one that's not true is not in here, pretty much. But a Teen Titans movie is rumored to be at DC Studios. Cool, right? Like, fine. About time they brought competency to Teen Titans after that Titan show on HBO Max. So
I mean, I'm not shocked. I mean, I think the Titan show on whatever the DC streaming app was called before it got folded in, I don't even remember anymore. What a weird time in the streaming landscape. I mean, I think it was obviously successful enough to get multiple seasons. I didn't keep up with it.
Yeah, but so was Pennyworth. So
and then the feverish fan base around the original kind of animated Teen Titans show, and then there's a whole generation of children that grew up on Teen Titans Go. So the audience is ready for something more prestigious,
cross-generational.
Yeah, on the big screen. And I think this is a great storytelling avenue. I mean, just watch the animated series of Young Justice. It's a great way to kind of get your audience into a superhero universe, because these characters are there. It's almost like the new class, right? They don't really know how everything's working. They need to go through training. They need things explained to them. It's a great, it's like a great position for an audience to be in, to be like taught the rules of this universe. Right?
One of the benefits of James Gunn kicking off Superman Legacy with superheroes already existing in this world is they can have their mentors already in the DCU, right? Without having to have standalone movies, even though that would be preferred and works better. But you thinking of Batman, the Brave and the Bold will have not regular Robin, the other Robin, Damian Wayne in it, right? Like, is that going to be like, is this Young Avengers but for DC, because Marvel's teasing Young Avengers?
That's a great point. I mean, the Supergirl casting that we talked about just the other week, a young actress as well, or at least I don't know her real age, but perceived to be young, played a relatively young character in the House of the Dragon. Right. So yeah, that could be what they're working on. You got Robin in the wings.
Hot Girl's Ilabeza Merced, which she's a young actor. I'm pretty sure she was in Madam Web. Is she? Is she Madam Web? No. I'm gonna look this up. Anyway, continue.
All right, you look it up. But yeah,
Anya Corazon, the girl who lived in the building with her, is Hot Girl, and she looks very young.
So we could have a like a young Justice Teen Titans. I guess Teen Titans, you'd really have to kind of change up the team, if you will. Like, are you swapping like a Starfire for a Supergirl? Is that what's happening there? I'm not sure, but
there's opportunity here. That is what it is. So if that's for the audience and that's what the people are demanding, give it to them. Do something. You don't have to ignore them and do whatever you want. I think there's opportunity there. The other rumor that came out of this is Plastic Man movie being written or at least directed by Darren Aronofsky, who's probably writing it too if this comes true. Now, for those not familiar with Plastic Man, imagine the abilities of Mr. Fantastic. He can turn into different shapes, twists, stretch, whatever, but he's very crass. He's not the scientific person Mr. Fantastic is. He is like a horn dog celebrity, if you will. Quite different.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the craziest part of this. Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's not the character. It is Plastic Man. I
mean, do it. I mean, is this like a paycheck move? Is this just like he's feeling experimental in this phase of his career? I think the last thing he did was a movie in the Sphere in Las Vegas. Like, was he just enamored with a gigantic screen real estate? And it's like, what if somebody was stretching across this sphere from corner to the corner? Imagine all of the pixels I could fill up with a Plastic Man in this. That would be hilarious. Plastic Man premiering in the Sphere. At the very least, an advertisement on the outside of the Sphere. I mean, that's doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darren Aronofsky, like,
very experimental.
Wow. I'll watch it.
Yeah. It would definitely get a lot of attention on it. Hopefully it would be good in quality, and I have no reason to doubt it wouldn't be, but boy, that's experimental, if you will, for a character that not many people are going to know about offhand. So if this comes to fruition, we'll let you guys know. Right now, DC's have only announced half of their slate one, which is Gods and Monsters. He might fall under the monster spectrum, if you will, but we'll keep you guys posted as more information comes out. Now we're going to step into Sony's World of Spider-Man, and we're not even to Madam Web yet, Mike. One bit of news here, which I think is the best bit of news, if I'm going to be completely honest, is Spider-Man Noir, right? We've talked about this movie at Amazon, I believe, in the works. But that's not even about Peter Parker. It's just kind of about someone who's playing this noir person in this. But Nicolas Cage is in serious talks to star in this series. So he would reprise his role as the Spider-Man Noir that he voiced in Into the Spider-Verse movie. So
I'm of two minds of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the idea of a healthier streaming landscape where companies are kind of selling ideas and TV shows to other streamers, because I feel like that's the best version of Hollywood, where there's just lots of cross-pollination and promotion, and it's not just all gated under one singular streaming app. But also at the same time of like, I mean, we're going to talk about Madam Web here in a couple moments, but like, I can't trust anything coming out of Sony Entertainment with Spider-Man unless Kevin Feige has his hands on it. So, I mean, Nick Cage, a fun element, right? That piques my interest, but
it adds intrigue.
Yes.
I did not have any intrigue about this, and then I'm like, oh, Nicolas Cage, what could he do? Like, you know, is it the version of his character from Into the Spider-Verse, or is it, you know, is he just doing that because he had the voice role and he wants to keep playing it? It definitely puts a bigger question, like, oh, this is on my radar now, because beforehand I'm like, absolutely not. This is a travesty. We shouldn't even be talking about this at this moment. But that's about the only good news I have kind of going forward from here on out on the show. The next bit of news is Silk, the other Spider-Man show that they're working at Amazon. They did not revamp, or they didn't restart right away after the writer's strike, and there was some legal actions. But Amazon apparently scrapped the writer's room. They're keeping the showrunners. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are still on this as an executive producer. And they're retooling the show Silk to a male-skewed audience. Even though this is a teenage woman named Cindy Moon who has spider powers. So,
like, what is that? What is it? I mean, is that, you have it down here in quotes of male skewed audience? Is this from an official source? Is this a rumor? Is this
this was it. This was the most official thing you get without Amazon saying yes, this is what we did, kind of thing.
I mean, like, what are did they think the series was like, I don't know, too woke or something? I don't know. That's a big red flag for me right there, of like, oh, we don't think we can get anyone to watch it unless we put the... Yeah. Because when I see this, I just imagine what's the tightest latex uniform, you know, we can put on our heroine, and that kind of gives me a little bit of like skeezy vibes.
The problem is Amazon has too much fucking data. Who's buying these books? Who's looking this up? Who's... you know, what interest is there? So my concern is they have too much data to think that men are just looking up this and not really looking at how do we make a good product at the end of the day to every audience member, not just men. I don't know what the first version of it is. So, you know, was it, you know, just the daily life of a teenager with spider powers who happened to be a girl this time? But, like, we've done that with Miles. So I don't know what even the first one was to even say, why is this one special? For men.
Well, also, if you purely just follow data, it's the tail wagging the dog, right? Yep. Yeah, if you look at the data, oh yeah, we have this hyper-violent comic book show called The Boys, and then we have an animated one called Invincible, you know, that skews, I would say, male, even though I'm sure there's plenty of women that watch it and enjoy it as well. But yeah, if you're looking at that data... But like, you have to have a breadth of other content if you're going to be like a big streaming service. So it's just weird. Like, there is nothing inherently wrong necessarily with scrapping a writer's room if the show is just not working. But for this kind of quote to kind of be like leaked out or disseminated, like, you're not doing yourselves any favors.
Right. Well, yeah, I think you're honestly limiting your product, right? Like, you should just make a good show regardless of who's going to watch it, because if it's good enough, people are going to watch it. You don't need to say, oh, it needs to be male oriented. Okay, well, yes, most comic book readers are probably dudes. But that doesn't mean all your stuff should be focused towards mid, right? So
also, just like almost everything Spider-Man related, the best version of it is happening in the PlayStation video game universe right now, and it's heavily implied that this character is going to be coming to maybe the next Spider-Man game or the next Spider-Man game. So I'm just holding out for hope for that is going to be the best kind of introduction to like mainstream this character is going to be that video game.
And hopefully it comes out sooner than the show does. So
yes.
we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one and keep you guys posted. All right, now the main event. Everyone has been waiting for this all episode, and I applaud them for that.
Even down the hatches, tighten your webs, see if you can stick to the wall, because this movie came out.
Madam Web, Sony's Spum. This is a Spum movie, as we noted last week. Sony's pictures of Universe of Marvel movies. Like Marvel movies, yeah. So they only own Spider-Man characters, so it's only gonna be Spider-Man people. Madam Web has hit theaters. It came out on Valentine's Day. I went and saw it. My wife and I went on Valentine's Day, which is just fine. If you want to go to theaters, Valentine's Day is a good day to go. It was there was
Was it romantic, Chris? Before we even get into the content, any sparks flying?
No,
with
because
your best gal sitting right next to you.
Here's the problem. Valentine's Day, it doesn't have to be that goddamn day. Is what I tell people. Like, you can literally just do it the weekend before the weekend. It's probably cheaper to do it on any other day but Valentine's Day, and do the same things. But it was the first day they had it, so obviously we went on the Wednesday. After I said, "Do you really want to go to this movie?" Yeah. Are you sure you want to go to this movie? Yeah. Okay, we'll go to the movie. And then maybe, Mike, we should do is revisit our story from the top of the episode, because I watched this movie on Wednesday. I sat all Thursday thinking about it and talking to people in my office about it, because a lot of people thought this was an actual Marvel movie, and that concerns me for the most part, because that just tells me, again, we're in this so much, like the Deadpool. People don't know. Regular people don't know that this is not Marvel. Like, right? Like, it's all over the trailers in association with Marvel. Regular people don't know this is not a Marvel movie. And that is concerning on a level. So
yes, and rumors report that even the people in the film didn't know it wasn't a Marvel movie as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we sat through all of Thursday thinking about this. Come Friday morning, I was like, I have to tell Mike what I feel about this movie, and really prevent him from going, because at the end of the day, I'm mad at this movie. I told Mike this. My exact words: I'm the more forgiving of the two of us. And do you agree when it comes to most of the stuff we watch?
And incredibly forgiving. You are the type of person that can find the joy. You can find the bright flower petals in the middle of the weeds of pretty much any superhero property. And I'm usually the one coming in like a dump truck that says, light this field on fire.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised to hear you kind of break our cone of silence of just like, I don't think you should pay money to see this movie. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and then Mike said that you're inadvertently hyping me up. I'm like, okay, whoops, I think I've gone the wrong way. But at the end of the day, I think I came down to this because I've recently gone through, I'm in the process of scheduling to get my wisdom teeth taken out. I've had root canals less painful than watching this movie, Mike. And I hate to be mean. I think I took bad films in college. It's how I opened most of the saves. I took bad films in college. I can find 5 minutes of good out of the worst movie, as you mentioned. I can find 5 minutes of great out of the best movie as well. This movie, literally within less than 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh God, what have I done? Like, I literally, I think I said something out loud, and my wife kind of looked at me. She's like, "You all right?" I'm like, No, I'm not.
I can't wait to talk about the specifics, because I'm curious if it's the exact same moment where I thought, oh, this is what this movie is going to be. And if you don't usually watch or listen to our normal review episodes, we're giving it to you right now, spoiler free. But trust us, this won't last long, and we're gonna switch right over into spoilers, just because there's just some things we gotta talk about.
I feel we can almost go spoiler free or spoiler filled the whole thing, because you either watch this or you're not by this point, and I think time's up. Like, if you're not watching it, you're not going to see it, but we'll maintain spoiler free. It is hard. It is so hard for me to find a redeeming thing about this movie to talk about. And I will say, people ask me, where do you rank it? What's your rating? I give it if I give Morbius a 1 out of 5, Mike, for example, because we all know we already have that review, this is a 1.1 out of 5. And you may ask me, how do you rank this above Morbius? Morbius has the ability of, like, you know, the main actor, Jared Leto, thinks he's the best actor in the entire world, and he's doing us a favor by doing this. Matt Smith thought he was in an MCU movie the whole time, and was doing his best thing. But at the end of the day, that story is everything. It's just it's so well done, it's boring, right? Like, there's nothing that elevates it. The point one that this movie gets is me wondering how the hell this movie happened, because I have more intrigue about the production and what happened on the way to get this to cinemas than I do Morbius. Morbius, I understand. This, I'm scratching my head walking out of the theaters saying, like, I'm literally, I don't react in a theater. I don't like to give away my things, but I'm, like, physically groaning out loud in this movie the whole time.
I agree. This movie gets a slight artificial bump just because it's almost like a case study. It's like an experiment gone wrong, whereas, like, Morbius, you can kind of see everything written on the wall. It just feels like one of those, like, more ancient comic book movies where you're just kidding the typical beats and you're just cashing in on nerds coming into the theater. Where this one, it's a little different.
Yeah, I just beat to find something redeeming in this movie. Adam Scott, refreshing actor. I have no qualms with what he did in this movie, right? With what he was given. I think he's a great actor, and he somehow pulled off his role very well. How about that? That's one good thing there.
There you go.
I will also say that in this movie, as you see from the trailer, Madam Web, she can, you know, predict the future. And you know, they have to redo scenes, right? Because she's redoing scenes over and over again. Like, hey, I see the future, so I'm going to change something. I see a future, I got to change something, right? They were able to I think when they reset these shots and redid the things, that's actually competently well done. I felt they were able to redo the scenes without me saying, oh, that's a little different than last time. I think that's a technical accomplishment here. I think that's two things. Do I have a third thing? I don't think I do, Mike. I don't think I can do a compliment sandwich on this movie.
The rule of threes cannot even be applied to this movie. But, well, all I want to do is get us into the spoilers of this as fast as possible. So I will just simply agree with this is not a good movie. So let's talk about it.
Just don't see it. Just don't see it. That's all I'm going to tell you. Don't pay money. Wait till it's on streaming and watch it free. Do not pay to go see this movie.
Because if Sony is using any sort of analytics to make decisions, we don't want to sway numbers in their direction if we don't have to. So throw up the flashing
let me put the time code in here about spoilers, because no one's going to pay attention to it.
Let's get it going. So Chris, the moment for me at the beginning of this film that just my jaw was just kind of like, what is happening?
I want to pause this. I want to pause this because Mike live texted me this entire movie. So I have a good idea of what's going on here.
The only way I'm going to get any joy out of this film is if I just essentially live tweet with an audience of one, which was Chris. And I'm sure he was busy during the day because I got very little response from him. But I was like, no, he has to put up with this.
Oh, that's fine.
If he told me to watch this from the comfort of my own couch, he's going to get every internal thought I have on this film.
And that is fine. I just... the things you said, how do I even react to those? There's no reaction to it. I'm like, I know. I saw it.
Thumbs up. I agree. When the spider people descend from the trees was the moment I was shocked of what is happening now.
Nope. It was before that. It was well before that, actually. Whenever her mom was researching spiders in the Amazon before she died, that she screams in pain because she's... 400 weeks pregnant or something like that, looking for the spider, and literally she screams in pain because obviously the baby's moving or something like that, and the audio is different. Like the ADR cuts off, like whatever her scream is cuts off the ADR audio that was going on right before it, and I'm like, they didn't even have the editing time to put in like background audio to make this smooth and seamless with jungle sounds. They're just chopping it up like, oh, if this is the first chop, I can't wait to see the rest of the chops in this movie. And they come at you a mile a minute. But yes, this movie, not right even before the spider people, Mike, the dude, the villain goes and like, hey, I'm gonna rummage through her stuff, and then she immediately finds a spider within 5 minutes of the movie starting, saying, hey, I found the spider I've been looking for months along the way. Like,
and it's not even
quit explaining things to us.
It's not even like a very realistic looking spider. Like, they like really beef up like the, I don't know if you want to call it the thorax, the pointy part at the end of the spider, the dangerous part. Yeah. It's like so oddly animated, and it sticks out so strangely in the jar. You almost expect it to be a bigger part of the movie, and then the spider really never comes back again. I thought it was going to kind of be the linchpin item or something like that.
No.
It's like, no. I was maybe even expecting like a tie-in to like Oscorp, like maybe like Oscorp like takes the spider, or there's going to be some tie-in there. Like, absolutely no.
If Oscorp's not owned by Pepsi, they don't want no part of it. You don't want no part of it.
But like this whole spider clan in the jungle is just insane. I don't understand how any of this makes it through executive producers, creative team, gets it through the ladder, it gets pitched. It's just absolutely asinine.
My guess is this wasn't pitched. My guess is, and what's her name, Dakota Johnson said this, when she signed up for a movie, the script went through a bunch of reworks after they signed up for it. So they had probably a pretty good script to start, and then they just were like, no, we don't want to make that. What's the cheapest thing we can do? Let's have some flashes of people in like web garb over them who live in the jungle and can run across trees and have superpowers.
Yeah, and the costuming is so weird because they were like, okay, so we need some sort of like primitive Spider-Man costume to kind of allude to this franchise that we're trying to milk. But these are jungle dwellers. They should be in like, loincloths for lack of a more appropriate term. They should be more. Yeah, exactly. But no, you look at their costumes and it just looks like something cobbles together for Comic-Con. Like there's like it almost like there's like plastic pieces. There's like silicone like black webbing. Nothing looks organic about it at all. So it's just like, why? And then also, why does the bad guy create a similar proto-looking Spider-Man costume? We hardly know anything about the antagonist to begin with. So why does he even need a costume as well? Like, there's no explanation to the antagonist at all. And since I'm on this train of thought as well, why does he also have the worst American accent that I've ever heard in my entire life? I had to look him up. French-born actor, apparently pretty prestigious, has had some really great roles overseas. So I'm assuming he took this for a paycheck. So get that bag, buddy. This is great. I don't know what he's trying to do with this accent. It is crazy.
So two things. Number one, don't ask why. You're asking why in this movie, you're not going to get answers. You're not going to get any, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it because whatever came out of this is either gone to so many hands or nobody's hands. And nothing will make sense ever. It is rushed. There are things that are missing that should be here. As a film requires you to tell you who your character is, or at least show you, doesn't do any of that. But the voice actor, I think all of his lines are ADR'd. I think he had an accent issue, or did not have an accent in the first one, and they went back and added something in or changed it because almost all of his lines are ADR'd. If you look at him, his mouth does not line up with any of the audio. So
yeah, I mean, who even knows if that's specific to him? Because as you said at the beginning, Chris, there is so much ADR. Ooh. This film is chopped and screwed. Yeah. This is a chopped cheese sandwich with no seasoning or too much seasoning. I don't really know what approach you want to take to it, but just absolutely wild. I am so lenient in movies in general when it comes to performances, because I feel like if everything else in the movie is at least competent, I can kind of let myself go and fall back into the zone of just like, I am myself a horrible actor. Is a very hard thing to do. So even if somebody is just almost like reading lines off of a cue card with no emotion, I can let it slide. But there is absolutely no enthusiasm being brought to any role from any character.
You've got four leads essentially: Madam Web and the three girls, right? Who have to bond with each other, and they what's her name? Dakota Johnson, I think, is trying. The way she speaks is how she speaks like in real life too. So I don't know how much of that carried over, but even the three young girls, Sydney Sweeney playing like a 15-year-old, even when she's like clearly mid-20s, doesn't come off very well. Maybe it's because we know her from beforehand, But none of these girls, they probably got scripts the day of, Mike, because it feels like they are reading lines, and then like okay, practice this. Okay, that's our take. Actually, we're gonna get out of here. It really is baffling how these actresses who have good things under their belt, who do good things, are just relegated to like very poor iterations in this movie. Right?
Yeah,
it feels like they did the practice take and like, okay, that's the one we're using.
Yeah, just very like boring teenage archetypes as well. They just lean into just these old ideas, maybe because it's supposed to take place in the 2000s
or the 90s.
Is it supposed to take place in that? I could not get that out of my head the whole time. This was the game that I was playing that kept me engaged through the insanity. We had been reporting on this movie for a couple of years now, and it was always intended, at least as far as we know, to be set in the 90s. And if you do the math correctly, because I went and I looked up the different Spider-Men, the only Peter Parkers that exist out there in the universe, if you kind of subtract their teenage years to them, none of them align to 2003. There's not like a Tom Holland age Spider-Man. There's not an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man that align with 2003 as like a birth date. So whatever Peter Parker this is supposed to be, it's not one that we've theoretically met yet.
And to be honest, they said it's not connected, and boy, is it not connected to anything else by the end of this.
Chris, if you take Andrew Garfield in his first Amazing Spider-Man film, which is supposed to be a 17-year-old Peter Parker, subtract that from the year the movie comes out, sets you right in 1995, which I believe is maybe when this movie was supposed to originally be set. Because I understand in New York City, in Queens, once the millennium rolls around, it's not like everybody's throwing away their cars from the 90s. It's not like they crush them in a compactor and they all get new 2000s cars. But every scene in this movie, like it's oozing 90s as much as they can, and then they are force feeding you like 2000s references. It feels like with like post production,
Well, there's a whole scene of a dude playing a PSP, as you mentioned, which didn't come out until 2005, which is off anyway.
Yes, I looked it up. I did the research.
Other than Britney Spears' "Toxic" that they're dancing to, that song did come out in 2003, and that feels like something that was added in later because that whole thing doesn't sit right. All the other songs are about 80s or 90s era, right? Like nothing, like all the songs feel like, oh, this was supposed to be set. They bought the licensing for the music, then refixed it later, and like we got to use the songs for this, which is wild. Can I talk about cars for a second? There's a scene where she steals a taxi. Okay, fine. That's great. It works. There's a lot of taxis. Then she pulls into a dark alley, pops the plates off the taxi. Two things. The taxi identifier is on top of the taxi, not the plates. They're looking for the taxi. They can find.
I didn't even think about that.
They can find the taxi identifier. Number two, there are so many taxis in New York, and they say, we have a stolen taxi. Do you think they'd be looking for the one without the plates to be run more than the ones with the plates? Because they'd have to run every taxi out there in the world. This is crazy. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, when she steals the taxi, drops the girls off, and goes back to her apartment to look at her mom's notes, that's the same day, correct? Like, the kids were out there like 3 hours. She said 3 hours. But
I want to say, because when they get into the woods, it's still daylight.
Right, but she says, I'll be back. Give me 3 hours, I think is what she said.
Yes, correct, yeah.
They walk to a diner 2 hours in, let's just say, right, to do this. The guy is reading a newspaper about some girls being abducted from 3 hours ago already.
Listen, the Daily Bugle, they're not worried about quality. They're worried about quantity. They get those newspapers out every hour. There's 12 editions every day.
Yeah, that's 20. Oh, it'd be 24, Mike. But that's fine. We're not holding you against time here. But oh my Jesus Christ, this hurts to talk about. This hurts so bad. We're not saying anything. Like I wish we were saying things new that no one else on the internet. This movie has been beat to death on the internet. So there's no hot takes here. These are not hot takes. These are everyone else's takes on this movie.
These are cold, delicious Pepsi takes. And
Pepsi killed the villain. Pepsi killed the villain, Mike.
Also, like, I want to talk about the proximity of falls in this movie. Because the inciting incident for Dakota Johnson, Cassie, whatever her name is she is trapped in a car and falls approximately like 15 feet. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in that situation in real life. But you got to amp up the stakes when you're in like an action film, right? Like I like, okay, I get it that she's in danger, but like this is the thing that kind of is the catalyst of like kind of her powers igniting. I would expect a much further fall from a bridge, and bridge falls from cars are an iconic staple of Spider-Man movies, but they seem to happen at a little bit more of a dangerous height as well. So very, very odd. And then also the main villain, who is shown to us to be super powered in a way. Like he is superhuman. He is very strong. I find it shocking that he dies by falling off of like maybe a 3-story building. I understand a big letter fell on him as well, but to assume that
I believe,
is
from
what
Pepsi
kills him. Yeah. Yes, I think it's the second P in Pepsi.
He's a squash spider, Mike. He's a squash spider.
Yeah. The Pepsi corporate brand style guide says only the second P in Pepsi is allowed to be lethal. The first P, that's the hero P. That can't be killing villains.
No. The villain is awful all around. He's using NSA technology in 2003 with camera clarity that we did not have in 2003. Let's just be honest.
And even if this was supposed to be taking place in like also 1995, that's even more of a stretch. And I understand we as a society are more and more removed from 2001 of 9/11, but a New York City 2 years post 9/11, every institution in that city would have been just drenched in some sort of anti-terrorism, Patriot Act, something. One of these firefighters would have brought up something that happened. It seems so weird not to talk about it at all back in 2003.
But as you mentioned, that explained why there were so many cops though in the subway.
Yeah, that's the only reason to explain like 10 uniformed officers on a subway platform.
An empty subway platform. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then like I thought there was.
This is how I felt watching the movie.
Like, was there some sort of magic happening? Like, I understand the spider guy who's crawling on the ceiling. He's hard to see, but they made it sound like he was literally invisible and nobody else could see him. Where it's just like, dude, they really think Dakota Johnson launched these officers like into the subway tubes with her super powered like punches and kicks? Like, no, somebody else was there. So it was just weird that they really leaned into like, she kidnapped 3 teenage girls. Can you believe it?
The whole plot point, the whole thing is, there's a baby shower scene, Mike. I hope you get to go through this exact same thing at some point with this baby shower, where the whole point of this movie is she doesn't like people and she doesn't want to interact with people, right? That's her whole thing. She doesn't
like, to quote, she doesn't like all this family stuff.
But I would say even earlier on, right? Like a kid tries to give her a drawing for saving his mom or whatever, and she's like, "What do I do with it?" And he's like, "Just take it and throw it away," which is like any regular person would do.
Yeah.
At that.
What a psychotic thing to be like, "Oh, what is this? Is this covered in cooties?"
Yeah, like so it's like the whole point is, so like, and then you find out that she has like a she's mad at her mom because her mom died, was working, didn't care about her when she was like 9 months pregnant. Then you find out that she had an incurable disease, and that's why her mom was there. Like, but they over explain all this shit to you. Like, they just over and over explain to it. And the whole point of it is she's supposed to take these girls who have no family and become a mother figure to them, right? I get what the whole line, the through line is, but it is the worst way to get there, like throughout the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
The kids don't care. Like, they're not listening. They're doing, when she says don't do anything stupid 4 times, and then the first thing they do is something stupid, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, they're kids.
Like, I can understand her coming across one abandoned orphan child, right? But to come across 3 in the same day that all need a surrogate mother to help them is outlandish.
Who is going to also, all 3 of them, kill that dude in the same apartment he's living in? What? Just move apartments. Your vision will change.
And it's like I understand that they're trying to paint some sort of like Destiny paintbrush over all of this, but it's just absolutely wild. And I was prepared to not like this movie, right? We all of the red flags were going all over the place, so we were prepared for this, Chris. So we're not surprised that this movie is bad. But I cannot believe the gall that they had to lean so heavily into a couple flash forward scenes to put all of these costumed spider people into the trailer. Like,
and that's all we saw.
Yeah, that's all we get. There's I wish I could have found like a higher resolution final shot where you get to see all of them in costumes, even like Madam Web.
You can find some on Twitter. This whole movie's on Twitter, by the way, if you want to watch it.
It's crazy. I can only just talk about the things as they pop into my head. A firework flies through the building, torpedoes through the water, and smacks her in the face, and that's how she becomes blind.
We have to blind her, and then somehow she's also in a wheelchair. How did she get in the wheelchair? Why is she crippled?
Yeah, it's just like the Mace Windu redirected lightning was more believable for how the Emperor gets his weird wrinkly face than Madam Web's transformation. And I love how she's in that weird like robotic wheelchair automatically too. Yeah. Like she's all into it, ready to go. She's got weird goofy. She's got the future
Ray-Bans or the Oakleys, and obviously they're like, oh, here's what we got for groceries, and she's like, I know what you got for groceries, and they're like, this is really annoying. Could you stop doing that? Like she doesn't need to tell us that she knows the future. We get that she knows the future.
That final scene where they're in that kind of like almost cyberpunky like apartment, and they're all just kind of like
spider window loft that she's looking out.
That should have been where the movie started. I loved the cheesiness of everything that's happening in that final scene. Like Dakota Johnson is like, operating on this aura of like mystery and all knowingness, and then like these teenage girls like, oh yeah, this is just like our new mom. This is so fun. Let's eat like Chinese food. This is gonna be great. Like, and like I cannot conceive any reasonable scenario of how these three teenagers get their superpowers, because they're all so unique and different.
Oh my god,
What I can only imagine the hilarious hoops that if this movie is financially successful and gets a sequel, how they get their powers. Like in a comic book, all of these characters kind of are introduced in like different eras, decades, issues. They all have like
reasons for existing.
That explain. But to have it all happen all at once is just going to be so silly. I thought maybe that they were going to get some of like the poison in them from the bad guy and almost die, but then like Madam Web like somehow like revived them, and then that's
with
how they
chest compressions.
They cannot handle more than 4 chest compressions. Their CPR skills are absolutely useless because it takes 3 of them just to do a normal amount of compressions to bring somebody back to life.
Yeah, well, so this whole movie is about the web of destiny, right? Like everyone's got they're connected somehow, but they didn't even think that these 3 kids, how are we going to tie them in here? Because he only sees them in the future. He doesn't know how they get there. If I was to liken this to a movie that did it better, have you ever seen the movie Next with Nicolas Cage, where he can predict like 2 minutes into the future? Except when he's like with one lady, but he can see farther when she's like near him. Like
no, but there's other similar kind of Groundhog-esque movies that have come out recently, like the
Live, Die, Repeat.
Like and also like there's like a fun kind of like slasher college movie. I don't remember the name of it, but she's reliving the same day.
Oh, is it Happy Death Day?
Yeah. So there's people have done this way more creatively and way better recently.
That should be her powers, right? Her powers should be, I can see the future. Let's reset. Let's redo it again. And not, hey, I can split into 3 people and just kind of prop these kids up on their like support beams until I get kicked by a dude who's much stronger than me. Like, whoa, this is awful. What did you say the internet said her power was? To say watch out?
Oh, her power, her Madam Web's magic power is just to yell get down, because she has no real kind of useful power except for avoidance. Madam Web is how I play Super Smash Brothers. I hold the shield button and I roll around left and right until somebody gets to like 300%, and I can just manage to get a smash in on them. That is what Dakota Johnson is doing. She's putting her shield on, her reflector. She's spamming the projectile button because that's all she can really do. And then suddenly she can split into 3 people. I thought it was going to be more clever in the end. Like, you can be in 3 places at once. I thought she was going to kind of do some sort of like multiversal time travel thing, and all she did is she like split into 3 like Naruto.
They could have done the Doctor Strange thing where she sees all the different visions, right? And like, there's one where I can save the girls. Like, this is it. Let's do it real fast. And then like she may not be more powerful than him, but she has the ability to like block him because she knows what he's gonna do every time. Like, there's a whole thing there. I do want to share an anecdote. A listener of ours did share that someone he knows, and I'm trying to be very vague here. He knows who this is. Said that someone that he knows who has the worst taste in movies was talking to him about how good Madam Web was. Yeah. Anyway, so one of the things that he says at the end of it, quote, "So then she taps into her brain powers and has to defeat Venom." Okay. I could see how someone would get this. But that was a very funny line from someone who's like, this is Venom. This bad guy is Venom. And I'm like, yep, he looks like Venom, doesn't he? He looks just like Venom. So
this is Chris. This is we are butting up against what is called the rule of large numbers, where if you get enough sample size of anything, people, scenarios, you're bound to find every scenario to be true. So yes, there are factually going to be some number of people that enjoyed this. They're going to be
contrarians as well. Like, oh, it's actually cinematic art. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's just wild. Like, and obviously Morbius, I feel like, is the best direct comparison that we have, just because it's from the same studio,
same writers,
it's from the same Spum universe. Yes, same writers involved as well. Even though I believe other writers are credited on this before, like in the list of order. So we'll never truly know the current makeup of the script with all of the rewrites.
I can't blame writers, because this movie, if the initial script was what Dakota Johnson signed on to and it changed that bad, I can't blame any writer that I know of offhand, because I'm like, I don't know who did this.
Yeah, I do have to say, if my headcanon holds true, and Dakota Johnson signed up for this movie, read the script, saw the writing on the wall that this is a dumpster fire, so she approached every scene with just absolute apathy and just wild weirdness. And her press tour videos are so fun to watch, because she's so apathetic. She doesn't care.
She didn't even know the Spider-Man movie titles. I think in one
interview. She was asked, and she was just making up. She's just having a blast. And she knows that, like, this is in her past. I feel like she talked to her therapist. It's just like, just let it go and move on.
Embrace it, and they can't make fun of you for it if you're embracing it.
She's really taking it to heart. So I feel like she's in on the joke. And the single best moment in this movie, which I think is actually legitimately funny, but not worth watching the whole movie for, the whole scene in the movie where she finally runs into the 3 girls and tells them, "You're in danger. You got to get off this train." So they get off the train. And then they hop onto another train. And that's when she runs into a guy that she just told to also get off the train. So now he's confused, and he's like, wait a minute, am I on the right train? And she just goes, I don't know, and then walks by. That was legitimately fun comedic timing. If somehow you could just bottle that and make it the entire movie, we would have been having some fun.
I will end with the scene that capped this off. Is near the very end, and I think I told you this. There's a scene where she's in the hospital with bandages on her eyes, and the girls are with her, and they're talking. Oh my God, it's over. We have each other. A nurse walks in to check on this person, right? And they're like, "Oh, are you immediate family?" And she's like, "They're mine." And then the nurse just turns around and fucks right off. Like, doesn't even do nurse things. Like, literally, they set up this whole scene for her to say, they're mine. Like, they are her family. We know. You don't have to tell us. We get it. We got it. We saw the movie. But that part just, like the most audible groan I've ever done in a movie theater, Mike. I've seen bad things, but, like, that moment just pushed me right over the edge. I'm like, I can't wait to leave and go, be miserable thinking about this movie at home. So.
Chris said this whole film is already on Twitter. I came across some pretty fun compilations of just wild, out of control line reads from the characters. Yeah. So I think there is entertainment to be found from this film, but not in the traditional sense of paying for a ticket and going.
What I saw is that this is going to be one of those movies you get with your friends and sit and make fun of, right? Like in your home, like you're eating popcorn, you're having dinner together. You're like, hey, let's throw on a stupid movie and make fun of it, like talk over it. This is going to be one of those movies because it's that. It's not so bad it's good. It's not that. It's so bad it's bad. And you have to laugh at it because it's so bad and it doesn't know it's so bad. And I think that if this movie has a home, it will be in with the likes of The Room and Showgirls, where people go watch this to make fun of it together. Because the camaraderie, as you texted me, is what saves you from enduring this movie throughout the whole thing. But it does not give me any hope for Kraven. It does not give me any hope for... Venom 3 could probably be better than this because I think Tom Hardy has like more control than anybody else. But like, it's not going to be great. But like, I have no hope for Kraven after watching this at all. Mm-hmm. So... Spum has done it again, Mike. It's just ruined my day through and through. Well, if you have nothing else, that is the episode. That was like you said, a little bit of a double Big Mac, if you will, size episode. But if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at?
Yeah, they can find my webcomics at liferewardsrisk.com and pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you? You
can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know more about the show, where they can tune in for our regularly scheduled episodes, or normally when we have review episodes, those pop up too, but I don't know when our next one is. Probably Deadpool at this point. Where can they find those at?
Well, if they want to find our magical cave in the middle of the jungle with... possibly a magical pool of water, or was it the spiders that were magical?
She got Doctor Stranged into the water.
Yeah, but then she came out of it and wasn't wet anymore. So yeah. I don't even know what's happening. But if you want to find our magical cave, it's over at superheroslate.com. That's the best place to find all the avenues we host our show. You get our awesome show notes. So if you want to see all the things that we ran down this week or any other week in the past decade, we have all the show notes over there at superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you'd love to listen to fine podcasts. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Let us know what you thought about Madam Web.
Don't pay for it. Please don't pay for it.
Okay, what are your theories about Fantastic Four? How do you think they make it to the future? I want to know that. And if you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, it's very easy to do. All you have to do is share the show with a friend. Share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.